All right, our next speaker is Meghan Emidy. Meg received her bachelor's degree in environmental science from Westfield State University. She has spent most of her career teaching students about marine conservation and has worked as an educator at the New England Aquarium and the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. Meg believes that young people who are taught about the magic of the ocean hold great hope for its future, and her graduate work here at Scripps reflects that. So I was going through some old emails, and I found one that Meg wrote back in the summer about, I mentioned we discovered a species. It was that tiny sea cucumber, and we got to name it. And Meg had written this email that said, as I said, there was democracy. I was taking names and ideas. She wrote, I'd like to suggest the species name procursum, which is the neutral nominative term for forward movement. Although I can't imagine our little sea cucumber is doing much forward movement, I like to think that the MBC program is. I believe my fellow MAS classmates and I are pushing ourselves forward in an effort to do the same for science. We're always taking the next step to advance ourselves, science communication, and environmental awareness. And I read that and I thought a couple things. One, I thought, man, that is really appropriate for this time of year when you guys truly are graduating after all the hard work that you've done, and you're going to go out into the world and take these lessons and make a change, make a difference, because I really do believe that. The second thing I thought, of course, is I sure wish we didn't name that thing after a hedgehog. In any case, that was really foresight that you had in writing that email, Meg, so it's been a real pleasure to have you as a part of the cohort this year. Please join me in welcoming Meg Emidy.
Thanks so much, Samantha. My name is Meghan Emidy, and I have developed a model for place-based climate science education in San Diego County. Climate change is a problem that has growing significance, which demands that we must be aware of its gravity, educated about its causes and effects, and motivated to address this problem with innovative solutions. While the adults of today, you and I, do and will continue to feel the impacts of a changing climate, it is our youth who will face even greater consequences as the impacts of climate change worsen. So, students today must be well educated on the subject and also engaged in a way that encourages action. These students are the decision-making adults of tomorrow. Despite the weight of this issue, there remains a disconnect. Much of the public, including teenagers, still lacks a comprehensive understanding of the topic. In 2011, the Yale Project on Climate Change Communication conducted a study to specifically gauge teenagers' understanding of how the climate system works, impacts, and potential solutions to global warming. In this study, students answered 75 questions relating to the subject of climate science, and only 25% of respondents received a passing grade on this assessment, and 75% received a failing grade. Furthermore, only 54% of teens in this study believed climate change is happening. One challenge to climate science literacy is that students may not have been given adequate information about the subject, but that is only a small piece of the puzzle. Current teaching materials like textbooks do not always address students' held misconceptions about climate change, and the students who are learning about global climate change may not recognize or believe that it has impacts on local scales as well, making it seemingly irrelevant to them personally. In the past 7 years, greater importance has been placed on climate change education, and new research could evaluate whether these results have changed or improved. Despite this uncertainty in whether climate comprehension has improved, continuous enhancement of climate literacy among adolescents is an objective that can always be valued and prioritized. This presents a great opportunity to develop educational materials and resources to teach students about climate change. So, in collaboration with the conservation organization Wild Coast and a Scripps alum herself, who is a teacher at High Tech High North County, Dr. Johnny Lyman, I developed a curriculum to teach about the subjects of climate change and coastal ecosystems. I developed my curriculum around 3 core elements, the first of which is prioritizing place-based education. This is a framework in which learning occurs within the context of students' social, cultural, and physical environment. It enhances student engagement, stimulates curiosity, and helps secure students' commitment to a sense of place, and can also make abstract concepts concrete. So by rooting climate science education within a place-based framework, it helps address the commonly held perception that climate change is irrelevant on local scales. Place-based education can also create really meaningful learning for students when it involves an experiential component, like a field experience within their community. A second element of my curriculum is that it focuses on natural climate solutions. I noticed a lack of educational materials that feature natural climate solutions, which include conservation, restoration, and improved land management actions that increase carbon storage and avoid greenhouse gas emissions. Many students cite renewable energy and using public transportation as solutions to climate change. And while this is true, many students don't realize that restoring coastal and marine environments in our communities can also provide climate change resilience. For example, restoring salt marsh environments, like those found in San Elijo Lagoon, pictured here, can sequester carbon from the atmosphere and store it within the sediment. Because we have such incredible ecosystems throughout San Diego County, including those found within the 11 marine protected areas, or MPAs, in the county, I wanted to highlight their value in providing and enhancing climate change resilience. It was also really important that I frame this lesson in a way that motivates students to take action, that it engages students in environmental stewardship. So I included experiential components, which involved taking students on a boat to the South La Jolla State Marine Reserve. People want to protect the places that they care about, so taking students into the field to feel connected to the natural environment was really important to me. I also had the incredible opportunity to teach the curriculum I developed to a class of 47 10th grade students at High Tech High North County. This picture here and the others shown throughout the presentation are of the students that I taught. The first lesson I taught introduces the science of climate change, covering the Earth's energy balance, the mechanisms of the greenhouse effect, and the driving forces behind climate change. Here, Andrew and Mercedes are conducting an experiment to see how an increase in carbon dioxide concentrations affects air temperature in a closed system, here a water bottle, when exposed to a heat source. Before presenting any other material, I introduced this lesson by asking students to design their own experiment to answer this question. I told them that they would have access to water bottles and thermometers, a heat lamp, and Alka-Seltzer tablets, which when introduced to water, dissolve and produce carbon dioxide. So the students took many different approaches to answering this question and had a variety of data collection strategies. This experiment allowed students to witness the greenhouse effect in action and helped inform the rest of the lesson as we discussed how greenhouse gas emissions are causing climate change. In the second lesson, we explored how climate change is impacting society at both global and local scales. This lesson focuses on climate change impacts on coastal and marine ecosystems throughout San Diego County. The primary learning outcome of this lesson is students' ability to analyze the impact of climate change on physical and biological systems, recognizing the impacts that will most affect coastal communities like those throughout San Diego County. Students will also recognize the connectivity within a watershed and understand that even inland communities are connected to and influence the coastal and marine ecosystems. Students were divided into groups to research different terrestrial and marine environments, including inland ecosystems, the intertidal, nearshore, and offshore environments. They were asked to make a poster that provided information about their ecoregion. They were asked to define the features and conditions of that ecoregion, the different kinds of habitats and associated wildlife that can be found there, ecosystem services provided by that region, or how does the ecosystem provide benefits for humans, and the realized and predicted impacts from climate change. The students created some really beautiful and creative posters, which they then shared with their classmates. And what was really special was being able to go out and see these ecosystems that we had talked about in the classroom in real life. So we joined Wild Coast staff on a floating lab and went to the South La Jolla State Marine Reserve, where we conducted water samples and analyzed the conditions of the water. We conducted a plankton tow and then looked at those plankton under microscopes on the boat. We conducted a boat-based MPA Watch survey where we looked at the human uses occurring within the marine protected area. And we even did a squid dissection, which some students liked a lot more than others. In the third lesson, we learned about achieving climate change resilience by talking about how the impacts of climate change discussed in the previous lesson can be addressed through mitigation and adaptation strategies. This lesson highlights employing natural climate solutions in climate change education. Following this lesson, students should be able to recognize the risks and the problems society faces as climate change impacts are anticipated and realized, and then be able to offer solutions to address these impacts. In this lesson, students were challenged to create a draft management plan to address climate impacts threatening Cardiff State Beach, a local area that is really impacted by climate change. It is being affected by sea level rise and also coastal erosion. So this lesson highlights employing natural climate solutions and climate change adaptation. And the students were split into groups and given a stakeholder position to represent, such as Caltrans, who manages the highways, Swami's Surfing Association, our good friends at Wild Coast, and the homeowners who own multi-million-dollar beachfront properties. In this activity, students were able to compare and contrast climate change adaptation strategies in light of environmental, financial, and social impact. They had to advocate for their stakeholder groups' interests and compromise to find a management solution that was mutually acceptable. And of course, students explored the potential of natural climate solutions like dune restoration to help address the problems at Cardiff State Beach. This slide, it looks a little crazy, but this proves that learning happened, which is very exciting for me. So I gave students an assessment before I even met them. I had emailed it to their teacher, and Dr. Lyman passed out these tests and collected all their answers before I had presented them with any material, just so I could gauge what their prior knowledge about climate change was. And so on this first assessment, students scored an average of 59.6%. Each of these circles is representative of a single student's score. So then I taught the lessons and re-administered the same exact assessment, and student grades improved to an average of 70.4%, which is a 10.8% increase and makes for a very happy teacher. And it was statistically significant as I ran the data analysis, which was also very exciting. But the quantitative data were not the only results that I garnered. Students were also given the opportunity to provide me with feedback on what their favorite and least favorite parts of the lesson were and what they found effective and how it can be improved. And overall, students told me that they really liked the interactive hands-on activities and that the PowerPoints no way. They did not like that as much. So I'm glad that I was able to incorporate some of these interactive activities in each of the lessons to keep the students motivated and engaged. And then, actually, this is probably my favorite slide, because these are real student responses when I asked them, what was your biggest takeaway message? What do you feel is the most important thing you learned? And the answers up on the top right really speak to those three key elements that I tried to focus on. Sasha told me that she realizes there are natural solutions to climate change, like planting coastal vegetation, restoring salt marshes, etc. Caleb let me know that he realizes sea level rise is directly impacting our local areas. And Mercedes said, even though I'm just a teenager, there is still something I can do to make small differences when it comes to climate change. That is the most important thing I learned. I think this really speaks to the positive impact this curriculum has had, much more so than any test results ever could. So now this curriculum will be used by Wild Coast to support their floating lab activity. And I'm also very excited to continue working with Wild Coast through the summer, so I'll be able to keep making revisions and improving this curriculum. And it will also be integrated within the San Diego Marine Protected Area Collaborative Teacher Toolkits, which will be distributed to teachers throughout the San Diego County and provide educational resources on science topics, marine protected areas, and now climate change. I would like to thank my committee members, Zach Plopper, Dr. Nan Renner, and Dr. Dick Norris were my committee members and extremely helpful to me throughout this process, but also Corey Puccini and Angie Kemsley, who helped me take 47 students out on a boat. Dr. Johnny Lyman, who gave me such a gift to let me totally just try out some lessons that I had no idea whether they would work or not, and some didn't the first time. And Kayla Blinko, who is a PhD student here at Scripps. She's also my mentor, editor-in-chief, and a data analysis wizard. Thank you all so much. Do you have any questions?
Hi. Let's see, is this working? Yeah. Okay, so I have a two-part question, and this is super cool. I do a lot of work in schools. I know a lot of people are really excited about this. First part is, what kind of motivated you? It may have been convenience to work with this exact age group in this kind of niche, kind of educational setting, like high-tech high. And then also, what does cost sustainability look like in terms of applying this in a public education system for public school teachers, maybe in low-income areas?
Sure, thank you so much for that question. I chose this group of students because I had a teacher who would let me teach her students in 10th grade. I had decided either between middle school or high school, and I wasn't quite sure. And so when this opportunity presented itself, it was an easy choice for me to go high school. And then, because it will be integrated within these teacher toolkits, there's a grant funding to produce them and distribute them. So at least 90 teachers throughout San Diego County, and then also 10 docents throughout the county will receive these toolkits. And then, because this is now Wild Coast can just have all this stuff. This is great. They're a great resource for teachers to come to and kind of expand the capacity of teachers throughout the county as well.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some of the changes you want to make and why?
Yes, thanks so much. I really, I would love so much to be able to have the opportunity to do it again. Some of the activities I did the first time just totally failed. And so this is already reflective of some of those changes that I've made. But I do think it would be beneficial to take the students' feedback and change some of those PowerPoint lecture-based lessons and make them more activity-based, inquiry-based, and provide more opportunity for interactive learning.